Sarah Dawkins, welcome to the show.
Hey Brent, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome, welcome. I love some of the things that you're into. My audience may not be familiar with you, so if you could just give us the high level overview of like who you are, and what you're about.
Thank you. So, I am currently a holistic health coach. I help people to heal their symptoms from the root cause, to dig into why their symptoms are there. I am in the process of transitioning to be a speaker to get my message across to more people that we can heal ourselves. But I didn't always believe that because my mum was a nurse, so I was raised in the medical model. When I had a symptom or I was sick, I would go to the doctors, get a pill and heal in air quotes. And that's what I thought. And that's the life I lived for 41 years. But one of my work colleagues challenged my beliefs around taking pharmaceuticals at home. Some, when you're like, well, she's a nurse, that's what we do. But what else is there? So I went home, did lots of research, and started my own healing journey outside of the medical model, the pharmaceuticals. And that led me to years of research, years of healing to get to where I'm at now.
Got it, got it. So, what type of challenges did you have, if I can ask?
Yeah, the biggest challenge for me was mindset because for 41 years I'd literally just worn these goggles, if you like. That was my life view. There was just doctors, medicines, and hospitals. Knew nothing about the body's ability to heal. So I started reading and finding people who'd healed themselves and thinking, well, I wonder if I can do that. Is there something special about them? And so I tried it, but not really believing it because that wasn't how I was raised. And then within about a month, I healed psoriasis, eczema, and acid reflux. So now I'm starting to see tangible results in my own body from literally making small tweaks to my diet and lifestyle. So the first challenge was actually believing in it. But the biggest challenge for me was living two separate lives. So at home, I was all natural, holistic, healing myself a long way into a healing journey. But at work, I was doctors, medicines, interventions, pharmaceuticals, and living those two lives separately caused me massive angst and spiraled me into a deep, dark depression with suicidal thoughts because I'd always wanted to be Sarah the nurse. And I'd aligned with my job, as many of us do. And when I started thinking, well, who is Sarah? I had no idea who I was. And I think looking back now, I had to go through that to find out who I was authentically, to ask those deep questions of myself, to look at other people's opinions of me and the beliefs that I was holding about myself, because our beliefs come from, well, we borrow them from our parents as children. And until we become conscious of our own beliefs and where they came from, they will just run our lives in our subconscious mind, and we will just run on autopilot with those beliefs until we're triggered. And if we can take that responsibility when we're triggered, as I did, and say, oh, why am I so triggered? What is it about what they've said that's led me to feel this anger or frustration or sadness? What specifically is it? And underneath that belief is an emotion. And underneath that emotion, there's something that's happened in our lives when we were children that's formed that belief. So if we can unpick that and give ourselves grace, then we can start looking at, does that belief still serve me? Because for 41 years, I believed in medicines. Now, I believe my body heals itself after going through challenging and changing that belief. But don't get me wrong, I still believe medicine has a place for accidents, emergencies, trauma. But outside of that, we can heal ourselves. And yet we're just not taught this in school. I was never taught it in nursing school. I was never taught it in the hospital. It's always doctors and pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, that's a real problem, and I really loved you called out the fact that most people are kind of going through their life completely unaware. I think Carl Jung has this great quote about that. It says, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And so I think that ability to do that deep introspection and to understand like what bubbles up from way down deep, and also that concept of the collective unconscious. You talked about your parents. Yeah, they directly inform a lot of your beliefs. But also, I think we've got a whole lot of DNA that has captured a lot of our evolutionary experience that sort of guides our behaviors as well. So it's complicated being a human being. And I see a
Isn't it
lot of
just?
people that are kind of NPCs. I'm sorry to say it, but like don't
Absolutely. Yeah.
going through life like little drones, and it's very painful to challenge one's own assumptions, one's own belief. It's a gut wrenching experience if you've ever gone through it.
It is, but having done that and come out the other side, my life is so much better because I am more aware now of myself, my feelings, my thoughts, my beliefs. Whereas until that time, most of my life I was running on autopilot like many people do. So when we're challenged and we take that challenge by the horns and look at what is it about that that's challenging me? What do I need to look at? I'm a big believer that whatever triggers us is showing us where we need to heal. It's bringing something up to heal. And if we can do that work and become self aware, we take responsibility back for our health, our life, and we start living it more consciously. And until that time, 95% of our lives is living on our autopilot, on our through our subconscious on autopilot.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I also think that a lot of people don't appreciate the amount of our health is tied into belief, period. If you're familiar with the placebo effect and the nocebo effect,
Absolutely.
that is incredibly powerful. And it speaks to how our actual beliefs, whether they're even accurate or not, can dictate our health status.
Totally. And as well as the placebo and the nocebo, are you aware of medical hexing?
I'm not. Tell me about medical hexing.
So, so it's very similar to nocebo in that the doctors tell us, oh, this is your diagnosis. You're going to end up in a wheelchair, take all these drugs, and you're going to die early. And so they're literally telling us, and because of the studies by Ash and Milgram in the 50s and 60s, the obedience to authority and
Mm.
conformity, we take that doctor's word as gospel because, most of us have put that doctor on that high level of authority. And so we're raised to do what the doctor says. And, there's other roles in society that we're raised to believe that they are gods, in air quotes, if you like, and we must always do what they say. So for the doctor to say, this is your disease, this is your diagnosis, this is how your life will pan out and you will die. Some people will buy into that totally and end their life early because they've lived out that medical hexing from the doctor.
Yeah, and we boy, like, I can think of endless examples of that now that you call that out, like, and there's always the person that says, "Screw you, I'm not gonna listen to you,"
Yes.
and then they sort of push back against it, and then they, have an outcome that doesn't align at all with the doctor told them that their outcome was gonna be. So I think that's a really important call out, and I think you also call out something important, which is I think that there is willful belief in people that the doctors have all the answers. They want to believe, and I think this is so toxic because as you probably watched. We went through the whole pandemic thing, and there was you have to trust the science. We have to
Yeah.
follow that
Yeah.
the experts say, and we got to the other side of this now, and everyone is looking back and saying, "Oh, they were all wrong about everything." And people don't like that. People don't like the uneasiness that comes with medical uncertainty. They don't like knowing that human beings are an incredibly biodiverse species that have endless complexity to it, and we don't know everything. Matter of fact, there's more we don't know than that we do know. And as Andrew Huberman has famously called out recently, basically at least 50% of what's in medical textbooks is bullshit. It's wrong. It's just absolutely wrong. But for some reason, when you start talking with like a normie, with they're having a conversation with somebody like you or me, we'll get shamed. We'll get told that, oh, you can't do any of your own research. You can't heal yourself. You can't like
Yeah.
leave it to the
Yeah.
doctors. The doctors know. And it makes me so upset because like particularly with nutrition science, right? Doctors, at least in America, I know UK is different, but in America, doctors get almost zero nutritional training.
Yeah,
They don't have a clue. And somebody such as myself, who's been studying it for years and years and years at depth, and it's like the information's out there. We have the internet. It's not like, and you can listen to quacks, right? That's the scary part about the internet is that you can go down a rabbit hole, and pretty soon you found some guy's going to sell you colloidal silver for it's treating AIDS or something. I mean, it can get really crazy, but if you're a somewhat reasonable human being with a average IQ, I think that you can learn a lot more about how to take care of yourself than people would give us credit for.
absolutely. And thinking about that reminds me of the study, I'll use air quotes to say study, on red meat, in that red meat causes colon cancer. But yet, I think was it the FDA back in 2015 or 16 came out and said, actually, we use cheap hamburgers and like Frankfurtery sausagey type things in the red meat, so which were full of rubbish, lots and lots and lots of ingredients. So of course their study was flawed. The conclusion was what was paid for ultimately. Whereas, I a lot of people tell me that I shouldn't be eating red meat or fat because it's bad and the cholesterol. And they have no idea. I had a conversation yesterday and she had no idea that cholesterol is part of our immune system. And without it, we can't turn the sunshine into vitamin D. Just absolutely no idea. And I live in Spain now, and there's lots of people out here who cannot synthesize vitamin D from the sun because they haven't got
Mhm.
cholesterol or sufficient levels of it. And where are we told that? We're just not. We're not educated in that aspect of nutrition because there's an agenda behind everything.
Yeah, and it's so simple to sort of poke the normies. If you see this, the way this works, somebody will release an article online that says study finds red meat causes cancer, right? And they'll put that out there. And most of the time, the study is not even linked up in the article or the abstract or anything to do with it. And so a person will read it. They'll say, "Oh, there was a study." And people aren't sophisticated. They don't understand what that means. Like, I love the red meat study you called out. Like, number one, like, if you have any sophistication, all you understand is it's a epidemiological study. This is going to be a food questionnaire, which notoriously unreliable. And then also, what they're looking at is the p-value between the types of things that they're consuming and certain outcomes. They're not controlling for anything. Like red meat. If you make the claim red meat causes cancer, it's like, well, hold on a second. Like, what are you including in red meat? It's like you look in the study, it's actually pizza, like pepperoni pizza. It falls into that category. And as you mentioned, it's always this processed, nitrate filled garbage. And it's in the context of a standard American diet half the time, which is garbage, hot, super, super high refined carbohydrates, which I think, as we all know, is actually what causes that underlying inflammation in your arterial walls has the cholesterol, the cracks that open up that fill with cholesterol. And like, that's the real reason, like metabolic syndrome,
Yeah.
insulin resistance, these are causing coronary heart disease. But everybody just wants to look at saturated fat and cholesterol and think that they've solved the problem. And to your point, most of this is driven by money. There's money or an agenda behind it. Oftentimes both, that are funding these studies, that are pushing these studies, and clearly in the media, in academia, they've got a certain outcome they're trying to engineer. They want to have their fake meat future. They want to have us eat the bugs. They want to have us have a vegan lifestyle. Like, this is ideological. This is almost religious type of propaganda that we're expected to swallow, and most people just don't have the sophistication to see through it, and therefore they'll attack somebody like us, who's like, actually, red meat is the healthiest food on the planet. Like, period.
And I think a lot of people, and I used to be like it myself, it's we're lazy. We're actually inherently lazy, and it takes responsibility and ownership to own up to that. But so many people, and I include myself in this, years gone by, would just read the headline, which is clickbait: red meat causes cancer. Oh, let's not read the study; it's too long. Scroll on by. Red meat causes cancer. Note to self. And that's the extent of where they stop. They don't go further and go, well, what red meat was it? Was it really red meat, or was it fast food, junk food. So we really need to get past that clickbait on reading the headlines and actually read into what the what's, the whys, the wherefores.
And I think we are, and I think there's some people out there that are helping the normies. I think you've got so there's a bunch of them. There's like Nick Norwitz, who does a great job of really breaking down complicated topics, and I think that there's a bunch of people on social media that are doing a fairly good job of trying to understand the science. But also, on the flip side, you have people like Lane Norton, who is a PhD, and he has a lot of good takes in some areas and like really bad takes on others. And so it becomes very difficult, even as you advance your levels of sophistication, to still understand what's true, because a lot of people have this appeal to authority. If somebody has a PhD next to their name,
Yes.
or somebody has been on whatever influencer's famous
Yeah.
podcast, like,
Yeah.
oh, Rhonda Patrick said it, so it must be true. Like you get into this realm, and I think that we've all got to approach everything with a skeptical mindset. Like you need to be skeptical of every single claim that's coming down the road, and you have to take your what you believe to be true as provisional knowledge. Like this is what I
Yes.
believe right now, but I'm willing to update it based on new information. I think that's really important for people, and I think people have a hard time doing that, even in healthier communities. Like the carnivore community can turn into like a cult, right? And
Yes.
whatever dietary protocol that you follow, it's very easy for us to get into tribal niches and to get into
Absolutely. Yeah,
and
carnivore and vegan. It's like the opposite ends of the scale.
yeah, yeah, and so, it's just really tough to sort of figure out what's true, but what I will say, like, my personal experience is that most of the time, that is people overcomplicating things. I think if from a base layer, like, if you're gonna start at the foundation, if you are getting your strength training several times a week, you're getting plenty of cardio, you are eating a non-inflammatory diet, very high protein, right? Something that's gonna, help with muscle protein synthesis, um, uh,
Good
very, very
fats.
yeah, good healthy fats, the very basics, right? If you do these things, like, you're gonna be 90% of the way there, and I think people spend so much time arguing about the other 10%, that would be like, "Oh, I'm aiming for perfect," and it's like,
Yeah, there is no perfect
there's not perfect, yeah, for sure.
because at the end of the day, we're just all human. So, if you want that ice cream, have it. Just don't have it every day.
Yeah, well, that's hard for some people too, especially you called out childhood. What do you know about childhood and how it influences health?
Childhood trauma. Where do I start?
I don't know, but tell me, because 'cause I'm patient 0 on that one.
What happens in our childhood up to the age of 7? As children, we just absorb everything. We absorb what was said, we absorb what was done, we absorb how it made us feel. And the part that, when we talk about trauma, capital T trauma, as in sexual, physical, mental abuse, little t trauma as being teased or being excluded, anything really, it's what we hold on to and how we hold on to it is the crux of what happens to us as adults. So it's not so much as what actually happened as how we hold it. So we could have a capital T trauma, but actually hold it quite loosely. But the little t trauma, somebody made fun of us and we were so embarrassed we'd never done whatever that was again. And we're really holding on to that resentment, that anger, that frustration, that sadness. It's that we're holding on to. And as we hold it, we're still holding it at the age of that child that we were. So whatever age, up to 7, when we literally just absorbed everything through our subconscious mind, with there's no judgment at all. It just was. There was no right, wrong, or should be. It just was. So we hold on to that, and then we build an ego around that to help protect us, in air quotes, throughout our lives, because our ego doesn't want us to be hurt like that again. So that will trigger us in certain situations, and we can have this overtly emotional outburst at some things when we're triggered. And that is our signal, if you like, to come back in and say, why did that affect me so much? And we can often link it back. Quite often we've repressed it, suppressed it, But sometimes we've repressed it to the point that we don't know, we can't remember what's happened. But we know we have this overtly emotional response to something. So that life, not 0 to 7, is still sitting in our subconscious, whether we remember it or not. And it's running our lives on autopilot, trying to protect us all the time. So when we dig into what happened, how did I feel about it? Who was involved? What else was going on? And if we can look at a broader picture through the eyes of the adult we are now, and look at it as an outsider, not through the eyes of the child, and don't put ourselves back into that situation. Look at it as an observer. We can get more clarity around it and understand what went on. And it's that understanding that helps us to deal with our inner child, because we've all got an inner child. I know for some people it sounds like woo, and it kind of is, but inside of us, we've got an inner child that's embarrassed or shamed or guilty or doesn't want to be seen, or is, keeping themselves small and is scared. And in a lot of situations, when we feel fearful or anxious, it's actually our inner child, because it's remembering something from our past. So if we can just talk to ourselves, like it's called reparenting. If we can reparent ourselves and say, look, little Sarah, little Brent, I hear you, I see you, I validate you. You're safe now. That's not going to happen again. I'm here for you. I love you. You're totally safe. It's about calming the young child inside of us who's still living through that trauma because it's suppressed or repressed. If we can do that more and more and help ourselves to understand when we feel triggered, when we feel scared, when that guilt and shame is coming up and what is around it, we can do that reparenting and give ourselves grace and treat ourselves with compassion. And that is a huge part of healing our past, because to heal our mind, body, soul, we can't heal that totally without addressing the past. Now, for some people, they can't get to a place of forgiveness to forgive whoever did whatever, said whatever. But if we can come to a place where when we look back, we can acknowledge and then accept what's happened, because we can't change it, but we can change the way we view it. Some people will be able to go, okay, yeah, I see what was going on now through the eyes of the adult. I can logically, rationally understand what went on. So we can come to that place of forgiveness. But for those who can't ever come to that place of forgiveness, if they could come to a place of acceptance, so when they look back, they are looking back, but emotionless. They're not triggered. There's no high emotions rising up. They can come back and be neutral about it. That is as good as coming to a place of forgiveness. And we have to heal our past to be able to heal our body, because dis-ease is emotions trapped in our body.
Interesting. Do you think that is a iron law?
I do think it is very relevant for the vast majority of people. Yes.
Got it. Yeah, because I didn't really probe your view of disease. I know you sort of have like this skeptical view towards doctors, as I do, and I think Dana White actually had this. The UFC guy had like the best quote. He's like, "Fuck you! I'm not going to doctors for anything ever unless I've got like a broken arm, I need surgery.
Yeah.
Other than that, like I'm going to other health professionals for nutrition and preventative care." Um, and so I wanted to get your take on how this works. Do you share the similar view, or is there a place for modern medicine, Western centralized medicine, in people's lives?
Pretty much share the same view. If I have an accident, like my dad 9 years ago, he developed sepsis, pneumonia, pleurisy. And my sister found him laid on the sofa, crying out in pain, but he couldn't do anything. And at the time, he was late 80s. He was blue lighted straight to hospital, put on drips, IV antibiotics, given fluids. And he spent at least a week in hospital, and it was touch and go. I actually thought he would die in hospital because I flew over and saw him. I didn't think he would come out. but he did. So for that emergency sepsis, and broken bones and accidents and trauma, hospitals and Western medicine absolutely has a place. So yeah, and when I went through that really dark night of the soul for 3 years, um, my doctor wanted to medicate me because I was so deep and so dark. And I'm like, no, I don't want medicine. I know that I will heal. I just don't know how I'm going to, because when you're in a deep, dark depression, your frontal lobe more or less shuts down and it's like thinking is challenging. But I totally had the belief that I would heal, and I did. I just didn't know how I was going to do it until, it took me a good year to realize I was practicing gratitude and mindfulness before I even knew what I was doing. It's that I intuited it over the months. So it's about that belief. I know I've gone rambled a bit and gone off on topic. But we have to believe that we can heal ourselves. It's like magic. You have to believe it to see it. Whereas a lot of people are like, no, I have to see it and then I'll believe it. No, let's just believe it happens all the time and then we'll see it.
Yeah, and that's a tough one for people, right? Even me, because I consider myself an empiricist, and I consider myself a rational skeptic. That's my baseline. Like I I used to be taken with magical thinking growing up. Like I was raised very religious, and it sort of baked in my worldview, and I had some sort of very sloppy thinking and some very silly beliefs in retrospect. So I'm always on guard a little bit, I'm always
Yeah.
kind of like, nope, no, don't fool me. So I start from a place of skepticism, but I'm like I said, also being an empiricist, I have to acknowledge the power of belief. And I don't even know if this is belief. This example I'm going to bring up, but I watched this documentary on Wim Hof. Are you familiar with Wim?
Yes. The breathing.
Yeah, and do you see where they put him in the hospital? And it was him and a cohort of people that did the Wim Hof breathing, and they were injected with an endotoxin. This is essentially like E. coli, and it would make all the other subjects violently ill. And all of the people that were in the Wim Hof breathing cohort had very very minimal symptoms. And that's very weird for me because I'm thinking, okay, you've both taken the same bacteria. It's gone into the control group and the other group, and it's just astounding difference, and the only thing that's different was the breathing. Then my question goes to, like, was it the breathing, or was it the belief that the breathing was going to have
It's the
this
belief.
outcome? It
It's
might
the
be.
belief. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They believed that they were just going to stay healthy and it would have either no effect or minimal effect.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, and I think we saw this during COVID too. Is that I don't know if you paid attention to this, but the people who got the sickest were the people who were the germaphobes, and the people who had a great amount of anxiety about catching COVID. They actually fared far worse than the people that people that just walked in and was like, "Eh, it's a cold. I'll get it. I'll recover. It'll be fine." That type of attitude seemed to have been predictive of what the outcome was going to be in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And I saw quite a lot of my friends go down sick with COVID. My husband and I never had it.
Yeah, it was a weird time, man, for a lot of different reasons, but I think it
Yeah.
did illuminate a lot of really important things. I think one of the things that came out of COVID that was really important is the importance of vitamin D. I think everybody
Yes.
now realizes the importance of vitamin D. I just wish, and I want to get your take on this because I've come to the belief that one of the most important things we can do for our health is actually getting natural sunlight. Where
Yes.
it's another thing like red meat's been so demonized. Like sunlight causes cancer. Sunlight is toxic. And if you step back for 5 seconds and you realize, like, hold on a second, we've evolved.
Yeah.
Our entire lineage, going back 4 billion years to bacteria, has evolved in the sunlight. We grew, we evolved essentially naked as apes, and it's been all over our body the entire time. How could it possibly be that we evolved to adapt to this environment, and then the environment is toxic? It doesn't make sense on its face. And I've gone a lot further into the science. I'm not sure if you've seen Robert O. Becker's book about it's called The Body Electric.
Okay. Yeah.
It is a fantastic book. I got turned on to that. Dr. Jack Cruz sort of turned me on to that book, and I was getting into the science of electricity, light, and magnetism. And it is phenomenal, the amount of impact that sunlight seems to have, and, it's becoming very mainstream, and, I think I called out, Andrew Huberman earlier as, like, the biggest health influencer on the planet, like, he is all about, the role of sunlight right now. It's becoming, forefront in medicine, and so I was very happy to see that come out of COVID that, like, "Oh, we actually need vitamin D, and how do you synthesize vitamin D? Oh, you need cholesterol." It's like, "Oh, you need sunlight," and all of these things that I've gotten a lot of heat for supporting and saying like these are actually healthy, seems to be the evidence is piling up that maybe this guy was right.
And let me speak to that as well, because my understanding is that when sun creams were brought in, was it in the 50s and 60s? That's when skin cancer started to skyrocket. And when we look at the ingredients within those sun creams, there's a lot of toxic ingredients. And my understanding is that some of those ingredients might not be toxic, but when they're subjected to the sunlight and the heat, they become carcinogens, so they cause cancer. And another point to the sun and protecting ourselves, I believe it was Foster Grant who brought out the sunglasses in the
Mm.
70s. So when we put the sunglasses on, we're stopping the sun's rays from reaching our optic nerve, which sends messages to the brain. And if we go outside without sunglasses, we receive the message from the sun to our optic nerve, which tells our body the sun's out. So let's make more melanin to protect our skin, to make our skin brown so it doesn't burn. But when you put sunglasses on, you don't get that message. So you're more susceptible to burning. And then as time's moved on with the advent of the seed oils, so that's like your sunflower, your cottonseed, your corn oil, your rapeseed, anything that's made from a seed. So really any plant, any oil that's made from a plant except coconut and olive, because that is made from the pulp of the plant fruit, whereas all the others literally are made from the seeds, and seeds don't have a lot of oil in them. So as the seed oils have become prevalent as heart healthy oils, people have moved towards those. And those also, I believe, cause our skin to burn, become more sensitive to the sun than it was before the seed oils were invented. So there's a few things there feeding into that: skin cancer, rates of cancer, lack of vitamin D because we're blocking it, and the nutrition and diet that we're eating.
Yeah, I think as with everything else, it's a multivariate equation. And people don't like that. People like to be, oh, it's only the seed oils. It's only oh god, there's a bunch of factors. But I also think one of the things you left out was the fact that human beings essentially went from being outside to being primarily inside, and also not only just inside, but this big push towards LEDs, moving away from incandescent
Yes.
bulbs. And so we have
Yes.
screens, we've got LED lighting, we're basically blue light toxic. And so we're
Yeah.
getting an overabundance of blue light and not enough of the other spectra that's included in the light. And there's something called the melanocortin pathway. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it governs the TCA cycle, the Krebs cycle, in
Right. Yeah.
mitochondria,
Yeah.
and it is a big driver of metabolic health. And so I think that's one of the reasons we have seen that's that spike towards being insulin resistant, poor metabolic health, the obesity, type 2 diabetes, all these metabolic syndromes started to spiral out of control about the time the internet came out and everybody was stuck in front of a computer indoors all the time. I think it's that. And then you got the sunglasses, as you mentioned. I think people don't understand the importance of the eyeballs getting sunlight. There's receptors in, as you mentioned, your optic nerve, but also in the lower part of your eye that are involved in the whole equation. That's what sets your circadian rhythm. That's why they suggest getting out first thing in the morning and get your morning sun. It's a very complicated, humans are so complicated, and
Aren't we just?
it's so difficult to get a grasp on all the right things that we should be doing. But I'm glad you brought this up because it's kind of like been the pet passion of mine is to try to go down the rabbit hole because I think I've missed it. I got so focused on the exercise and the nutrition portion that I think I missed the boat quite a bit with the circadian rhythm and light.
Yeah, and the other part of making vitamin D from the sun's rays, we need the cholesterol, but we also need magnesium. And
Mm.
the vast majority of people are magnesium deficient because stress just eats the magnesium from within us. I'm a big lover of magnesium oil because it's 100% absorbable. There's no nasties in it like tablets. And you can spray it on if you've got joint pains, muscle pains, problem areas. You can spray it on, and the primary role of magnesium is to reduce inflammation. Inflammation is the root cause of all disease. And I love it so much, I make it. And
Mm.
it's not a true oil. It looks like water. It sprays on like water. It doesn't stain clothes. And you can tell if your level is low or you're deficient because it stings. It's like prickly, stingy. So I make that and spray it on every day, to more or less degree, depending on what I'm doing in the day, if I'm stressed, if I'm overexerting myself, if I'm being a bit sedentary, because it's just so good. I mean, we need magnesium for over 300 functions, not just only to convert sunlight to vitamin D. But coming back to that, the sunlight needs the cholesterol, but it also needs the magnesium. So if you're deficient in either cholesterol or magnesium, you're not going to convert that sunshine to vitamin D.
Yeah, for sure. I had a question though, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but I thought that the skin absorption with magnesium was problematic. Like it didn't absorb very well. I know people say take an Epsom salt bath, and I thought that they did studies on that, and it didn't absorb very well through the skin. I could be wrong though.
My understanding is it absorbs better through the skin than the stomach. Especially the older magnesium, it is not very well absorbed at all. Some of the newer types of magnesium absorb better, but they've got fillers and preservatives and all sorts of other things in them. Whereas the magnesium oil is absorbed and there's no fillers. It's literally just magnesium chloride hexahydrate flakes and distilled water.
Interesting. I'll check that out because I do agree. I think the old magnesium oxide. I think like it just was really poorly absorbed, caused gastric upset. I think that's what milk of magnesia essentially was
Yes.
based on, right? It's like
Yeah.
maybe you don't want to have that. Uh,
Yeah.
but I've been doing that magnesium glycinate,
Yeah,
and I think
that's one of the new ones, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's one of the newer ones. I think there's another threonate. That's apparently it crosses the blood brain barrier if I'm remembering correctly.
Believe it does.
Yeah, but yeah, I think magnesium is certainly an important one. But I think most people, if you're getting sufficient red meat, it seems to be fairly high in magnesium, and obviously it's incredibly bioavailable. So I think most people aren't super deficient in zinc, aren't super deficient in magnesium if they're eating a diet that is heavy on red meat.
And
Um,
eggs.
Eggs too, yeah, eggs
Yeah.
are friggin'
Yeah.
superfood, man.
Yes.
All the things we were told not to eat growing up. I remember, in the 80s, it was always, "Oh, we wanna have a low-fat diet. We wanna have a high carbohydrate, healthy
Yes.
whole grain cereal. We're gonna
Yes.
have
I know.
frosted mini wheats. That's the, pinnacle of health." It's like, "Oh my god."
And yet before that, it was go to work on an egg. And then wait, don't eat eggs because they've got salmonella. And it's, yeah,
Well, it's always evolving, and I think, we'll continue to refine, but I keep going back to, like, man, just the basics. Like, what do we evolve eating? We evolved eating meat, we evolved eating eggs, we evolved eating milk. If it's not
dairy.
broken,
Yeah.
don't try to
Yeah.
fix it, in my view.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when people talk to me about food, I'm like, when you go back to early man and look at the caves, what was painted on the caves? There was a man, there was a spear, there was a bison. Show me the trees, show me the plants. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's wild, and I get it. Like, humans are omnivores, and we have to be, or in our history, we had to be adaptable and flexible because you
yeah,
didn't know what was available.
exactly.
We had to gather berries, and we had to gather all these other things to survive. Because I mean, surviving is very difficult. But
Yes.
in our modern era, where we have basically unlimited resources at our fingertips relative to history, we can make different choices. And I think it makes a lot of sense to stick with the things that were the most highly prized food sources that we evolved on.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting that the food that's been demonized is the ancient food that we've always eaten?
Yeah, it seems like we're in upside down world all the time. It's pretty wild.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to ask a question specific to you. What particular health issues did you overcome with this protocol?
Okay, how long have you got?
We
so,
have a while.
so I started with psoriasis and then went on to heal eczema and acid reflux. Then I healed candida, chronic joint pain, PTSD, underactive thyroid, depression with suicidal thoughts, and burnt out adrenal glands.
That's it?
Yeah.
Wow. That's wild. So, when did you begin this journey? How long did it take? Like, how long you been doing this?
So I started when I was 41, when I was challenged at work. And I literally always wanted to be this nurse. Started training in 98, qualified in 2001. 3 years later, I was challenged. I'm like, whoa. And so that's when I started my healing journey in 2005. So 4 years later, 2005, I started researching, tweaking my diet and lifestyle. I'm still on the healing journey. Every now and then I'll think, oh, I feel a bit overly emotional about that. What's going on there? What needs to come up to be healed? But I can honestly say that unless I step back into those stressful thoughts that I used to have, I don't have any symptoms. But when I step back and become a bit stressed, I see eczema developing and I feel the acid reflux. I'm like, okay, here we are. I've healed it and now I'm seeing symptoms. So it's my body's going, do you know what? You just need to take a moment. So I can step back and start doing some more relaxation, look at the world differently. So, so I started in 2005. Um, I'd done most of my healing by 2016 when I trained to be a coach. But that training taught me that there is the emotional side of healing that needs dealing with. So up until that point, I'd done the physical because that's all I could say was like nutrition, hydration, sleep, exercise. That was my go-to because obviously living in the medical model. And then as I went through that dark night of the soul and realized I was doing gratitude, mindfulness, I also added in some meditation. So I realized that I'm doing some mental work here. So that's physical and mental. In doing the meditation, I came back into that inner voice within inside me. So there's some spiritual work and understanding who my community is and pulling away from the people that drain me and going more towards the people that energize me. So I've found the three pillars of healing and health, physical, mental, spiritual. When I did my coach training, she took us on an internal journey to heal our past. I'm like, that is my key. We have to heal our past, and it's emotional healing. And actually, through my clients and myself, that is the biggest key to healing and health, is to understand how we can let go of the past, to either forgive it or come to that place of acceptance, how we can change our story rather than looking at what happened, look at the strength and the skills it gave us to overcome and change that story. So the emotional pillar, as I call it, is the biggest part of staying healthy and healing our body.
Got it. And you talked about the spiritual aspect. I want to poke at that a little bit. Do you have a particular belief in this area, a spiritual tradition or religious tradition that you're operating from? And if so, what is that?
So like yourself, I was made to go to church as a child, hated every minute of it, couldn't wait to leave. So I turned against religion as soon as I was able to leave that environment. When I lost my stepfather, I was 18 and I started wanting to look for answers. So I found spiritualism. And I've dabbled with spiritualism a little bit for maybe the last, for 20 years after that. And then I've dug more into that. So I've become
So
a
sorry,
lot more
what do you mean by
spiritual.
spiritualism? I want to make sure that I understand what you're talking about.
So for me, it's about always being kind, random acts of kindness, treating people how I would want to be treated, coming back inside myself, listening to that little voice, which talks quietly without emotion rather than my ego, which sometimes shouts. I'm learning to detach from that. But also I believe in reincarnation. I believe that this physical body is a vessel that our spirit incarnated into. And when we die, it's not our spirit that dies, it's this physical vessel. And then we go on to into the ethers, if you like, into higher dimensions, into different levels. And our spirit is comes back and is reincarnated because it's got lessons to learn. And in every incarnation, in every physical body, I believe we're here to learn some lessons that our spirit wanted to learn. And then we get to a point where we become an old soul. And then my belief is that we then have the choice to incarnate again to help humanity, or we can stay in the ethers in a different dimension and help humanity from afar through people who can channel spirit or speak to the dead, as some people say. But I believe that our spirit is a free entity.
Interesting. I don't have a belief right now. I'm agnostic, and technically an atheist, but I have, maybe this is a whole other topic to open. I've had some pretty powerful psychedelic experiences, if you couldn't tell from the podcast art. And so I'm open, right? Like I'm convinced now that there's something going on spiritually. Like it's very difficult to take 10 grams of mushrooms and then 6, 7 hours later come back and being like, meh, so I was on drugs. Like, I mean, yeah, I was, but I'm definitely convinced there's a spiritual component to this. And the more I've read Rick Strassman's work, DMT, the spirit molecule, like he actually believes, based off his research as a clinician, that reincarnation exists, which is wild to me, because he started off just studying. What's the physiological effects of DMT on human beings? What's the change in heart rate and pulse, and the basic metrics. And everybody came back telling the exact same story. It's like, oh, I went to this place and it felt exactly like home. I've been there a million times. And there was a bunch of his patients said that they went to a room that was like, oh, this is the place where souls hang out while they're ready to inhabit their next body. So when you say that, I'm always like, okay, maybe. I have no idea if that's true or not, but it's an interesting concept for sure. And I'm always curious what other people's views are around religion, spirituality, transcendent topics.
I mean, there's lots of children being some have been televised, some are on the internet. I've seen an 18-month-old baby sit on his parent's knee and literally play music, not just plonk, 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 like you would expect an 18-month-old, sorry. And then there's Max to the Couture. I think he's about 8 or 9 now, is an American boy. When he was 4, he told his mum, I'm a dressmaker. And then as he got a bit older, he gave the name. I think it was an Italian name. First name and last name start with G. But he just designs dresses and worked a sewing machine without being taught. And he's designed a dress and made a dress for Sharon Stone. He's had his own fashion shows. He's 9 years old. And then if you look at other children, there's a book by somebody whose child said he was Lou Gehrig. And he
Mm.
named Lou Gehrig's parents. He gave their names. And he said, what happened? My body became stiff and I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that, but my mind was fully functioning. I mean, when you read some of these stories of reincarnation, it's like, how could we not believe in it?
I don't know, maybe because I'm just crusty. My kids are way more woo woo than I am. I come from a group. My wife is very highly sensitive, and therefore my kids ended up being highly sensitive, and they operate on a different level than I do. They always joke at me, I'm dead. Like I can't feel anything from anybody. I'm not intuitive. I can't sense anything, and they are all like. I could have finished a bad call at work, and I could be in my office just sitting here typing, and somebody will come and peek in the head in the door, like, "What's wrong?" Like, "I didn't tell you anything." Like, "Well, I felt it." And I'm like, that to me seems very weird. So for me, I'm always like the newer part of me is like, "Okay, let's play with these ideas. Let's have fun.
Yeah,
Let's be open. Let's be curious." Because I always like to throw the wet blanket on the party, man. Like I think it came down to like I said, the religious injury as a kid.
yeah,
Like I was like, nope, not again, not gonna fool me. And so I have to put on that skeptic hat. But the older I get, the more I realize that it's actually quite fun to play with these ideas, and you don't have to take it so seriously. Like let's have a little bit of fun and relax. But I think that just came from that Catholic upbringing where it was so
yeah,
like you're gonna
yeah,
burn in hell for all eternity
yeah,
if you get this question wrong, and it's like It takes the fun out of it, man. So I've been trying to loosen up and lighten up and have a little bit more fun with this area.
Yeah, love it, love it. And my husband's very similar to you, except he's highly sensitive, but he's also a logician as well. He wants to see the logic, the rational, the reasoning. And I'm going, look, you just have to believe. And he's like, nope, can't do that.
Well, I believe in something. That's what I can say for sure. Is like having
Yeah,
these experiences. I have
yeah,
it's like this collision course with the transcendent. Like you just a head on collision. It's like, oh, I don't know anything. That's what I love about the psychedelic space is that you are so overwhelmed that it is like I just don't know anything. This is beyond my ability to comprehend. When you come back from the trip, you can't even verbalize it. It is ineffable. You can't really put it into words, but you're aware that something really profound happened, and it's very, very. It feels sacred to me. Coming from the non-religious background, it feels weird for me to use that word, but that's the best word I can describe it. It feels like a connection with the divine, with the sacred, whatever that might be. So I'm still kind of searching, man. Like I don't have it pinned down. I'm just like, oh, something's there. I'm aiming towards something. Don't know what it is.
yeah. I don't think I took enough mushrooms because I just had visions like, gnomes on trees coming down to say hello and just, it was just like the real world, but just slightly enhanced.
How much did you do? Like, what? Do you have any idea
Oh,
what
no, we
amount?
went to the fields in Wales in the UK, like one for me, one for the bag, two for me, one for the bag, just ate and picked.
Well, that's the best, right? The doing it out in nature I've found is absolutely the best. It gives you a complete it's almost like nature just pulls the curtain back and it's like it lets you see this other aspect of it. That's the first time in my life that I've been convinced that trees have some sort of consciousness. There's some form
Yes.
because like you walk through the forest and you can feel that you're being perceived by nature. It's a wildest experience. But even with my skeptic hat on, and after the trip, and after going through the like, okay, I was on drugs. I still believe that. I said that's a belief that I've carried forward through the experience. Like you can't convince me now that nature doesn't have some form of consciousness. And
Absolutely.
the
I
more
mean,
I've
you only have to look at the plants that when they start being eaten, they release pheromones which attract the bigger birds and prey and animals to come and eat the insects to stop the insects eating the plants. I mean, that's sentience.
For sure, and it goes beyond that too. So I've had Sterling Cooley on my show a couple of times, and he is a contemporary of Stuart Hameroff and Roger Penrose. I don't know if you know those folks, but Sir Roger Penrose, he is a physicist. So he's like a astrophysicist essentially, and he somehow got into the field of consciousness. And Stuart Hameroff, he was a physician. He was a anesthetologist, or anesthetist. Yeah, that's what it was. No, anesthesiologist.
Yeah,
Whatever the doc.
anesthesiologists in America. Yeah,
Yeah, and they had sort of overlap because anesthesiologists obviously need to make people unconscious. That's their entire job. And he saw Roger Penrose's work on consciousness, and they've sort of hypothesized that microtubules were involved in consciousness, particularly the quantum collapse. So there's something called the van der Waals effect that sort of forces the quantum mechanical state to collapse at predicted intervals inside microtubules, which is sort of the inside of your brain, right? Well, actually, they're all throughout your body. Your nerves are full of microtubules, and their belief was that is actually what causes rise of consciousness. And they've done some testing and it's fantastic. Like are able to administer xenon gas, which is an inert gas, and it completely disrupts consciousness. They can show the mechanism of action that it interrupts that quantum waveform collapse inside the microtubules. And so they like long story short, like I've gone down this rabbit hole with consciousness, and microtubules apparently are in almost everything, including plants, and they are like a proto consciousness. And so in human beings, there's something called pyramidal neurons. They're called that because they're shaped like pyramids, and there's these tightly bundled groups of microtubules inside of our brains that sort of together they all fire and give rise to like a higher form of consciousness. So I'm convinced from that research and my own experience that there's these lower forms of proto consciousness. They are conscious, but just not at the same level as we are, and I can't be convinced otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I can see it.
That leads me to another thing. I'm not sure if you're aware of the emerging research in ultrasound.
Possibly not.
Oh, I need to get you. You need to follow Sterling Cooley. So
Okay.
he not only is working on the consciousness aspect, but he's been doing ultrasound studies with dementia patients, and so apparently they're having fantastic results because it helps them modulate the microtubules in the nerves, right, and in the brain,
Wow.
and it can actually heal microtubules that are damaged, and that which leads to dementia and sort of things like that. Also, they're having incredible results stimulating the vagus nerve. So if you have
Yeah.
a cheap $50 ultrasound unit and you put it on your vagus nerve and hold it there, it actually because it innervates your all your organs, particularly like your
Yeah.
thymus, right, which
Yeah.
helps to downregulate inflammation and helps with your immune function. Some of the studies around that are actually mind blowing. Like I saw that data and I was like, "Holy cow! Like
Wow.
this is very very big." So from a healing perspective, you're looking to add additional modalities. I would suggest checking that out because number one, it is completely safe to use. There's no downside to it, and it's super cheap. And even if you want to say like, "Well, it's just a placebo effect," well, I hate it when people say just the placebo effect because if it works, right? So
Yes.
I have a couple of kids that are chronically ill. I got one with rheumatoid arthritis. I have another with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and they've been using it and they've got good results from it. So if you haven't looked at that, I would just encourage everyone in the sound of my voice to look at Sterling Cooley's work. It is fantastic. Love the guy, and I think that he's on to something big time with not only the dementia, not only with the inflammation and uh, immune system function and that sort of thing, but he also makes the claim that he's had out of body experiences incorporating
Goodness.
by combining Wim Hof breathing and holding the ultrasound. Uh, to where he actually left his body and ended up in Manhattan, like at Central Park in New York City, and completely lucid, completely
Fantastic.
conscious. And so there's something really weird going on with that whole system right there. And so if you want to go down a rabbit hole, everybody, check it out. I love Sterling. And I think he talks about it in one of our previous episodes. If you want to go check it out.
I will. Absolutely. Yes.
All right, cool. We're right up against time. So I want to give you a chance to plug your book and tell everybody where they can find you online.
Thank you. So my book came out of my own healing because I thought there must be people out there like myself who only think about the medical model, don't think about how powerful we are as human beings, our mind, our body, our beliefs. So I started writing my book as part of my own healing. Realized I needed to be bigger. I got 74 other people to write their healing stories. And I've got people healing ALS, multiple sclerosis, Lyme, cancer, endometriosis, sensitivities, asthma, so many different health problems, and they've all healed and they've all done something a bit different. But the core part of it is they all believed that they could heal. That is key. So my book is on Amazon in 4 languages. You can also get it from Barnes and Noble in America and order it in other larger Waterstones and other bookshops. So thank you for that. And you can find me on my website, www.sarahdawkins.com. There's links to my book, there's links to my podcast, also called Heal Yourself. And I share guests sharing their own healing, what their diagnosis was, and what they did to heal themselves, to continue the message that we can heal ourselves, even when doctors say that we can't.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for stopping by. It was a really enjoyable discussion. We got to chat later.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brent.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye.